Hi. Um, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience in virtual reality pornography, where it's kind of come from and where I see it going, and the implications for the industry and the people therein. So I first did my very first VR porn scene about 2.5 years ago. I met somebody through Reddit, which is the best place to meet people. And it was this person who was interested in creating VR porn. And I was a porn performer. I've been a performer for 7 years now. And I knew the first time I tried virtual reality that this was going to revolutionize the porn industry. But I didn't know how to get into it. And so when I met this person, I knew that there was a great opportunity. They flew me out to the East Coast, and I met the person who would later become my business partner. And when I first saw him, I thought he looked like a teenager, and I almost asked for his identification. And it turned out he was only 20 years old, and we shot our first virtual reality porn scene in his dorm room at his college, which was a surprise to his roommates, by the way. So the first product that we created was 180-degree 3D video. Then we moved on to 360 3D video. Then we realized that this was not a very defensible place in the market, so we made the first ever virtual reality holographic porn, which we then used to make a dating simulator so you can date me in virtual reality. And it turns out I'm kind of a tough date. This was a really compelling product because it felt like you were really talking to a real person. And the logical next step was to actually allow people to talk to a real person. So we created the world's first virtual reality live webcam platform, which is now called Cam4VR. And so I'm the world's first VR cam girl. And what I've observed in virtual reality is that every step of the way, as we made products that were more and more compelling, more engaging, and more intimate, is that the big draw for VR porn and VR adult experiences isn't just the sex. The sex is really secondary. The real offering here is intimacy and a solution to loneliness. There are a lot of people who simply don't have access to personal romantic or sexual relationships. It could be due to mobility or disability, time constraints, financial constraints, social constraints. There are a lot of people who just don't have that in their lives. And we've found that the big thing this offers is a chance to feel connected with someone else, to feel like there's somebody else out there in the void who hears you and has a reciprocal sense of intimacy and connection with you. So this is pretty big for performers because it allows performers to connect on an entirely new level, and it allows performers to make use of skill sets that have previously been sort of neglected as adult film performers. The persona that you cultivate and the identity that you project to your viewers is more important in virtual reality than the physicality. And this allows performers to really take control over their brands and monetize their work in this new nascent industry. And what I've observed with the live product is that people act a lot differently in virtual reality than they do on a 2D analog. So I used to do weekly shows on my webcam platform, and all of the viewers initially were all in virtual reality. And the way that people acted was a lot different from the 2D analog. So in virtual reality, people weren't coming in and being the internet tough guy that they might be in regular cams. There was a sense of community amongst the viewership. And with that came community standards. So when people were in my VR cam room, they were a lot more respectful of me, and they would police each other if they weren't respectful as well. Whereas in a regular cam room, people typically don't use very many vowels, and they will sometimes harass you and say nasty things to you because they're behind the veil of the internet and they feel like it doesn't matter and that you're not a real person. What VR does is it lends a greater sense of personhood to the people that you're watching. It makes you feel more connected with them. In the sense of Cam4VR, or in the case of Cam4VR, you're actually in my bedroom with me. So we created a camera and a stitching software and a platform that makes it so that the performer takes basically a 3D 360 picture of her bedroom or her space, and we broadcast video on top of it. And because you feel like you are actually in my home with me, you sort of respect me in a way that you really would if you were in my space. So the viewership treats the performer base kinder, with more respect, and a greater sense of personal connection. They feel like they're really hanging out with you, and they respect you as though you're someone who's really giving them your time and your attention, which is just not really seen in traditional camming and in the adult industry elsewhere. I want to talk a little bit about the future. So to do so, I have to discuss the past. Porn as an industry has gone from being dominated by big studios, big production, these porn moguls in offices, to a place where the performers really drive production. At least 75% of the performer base are content creators themselves. I'm the president of an organization called the Adult Performer Advocacy Committee, so I represent adult performers, and most of them are now producers as well. That's not really seen just yet in the virtual reality space. Right now, to be productive in VR, you have to have an expensive camera rig, you have to have experience with stitching software. It's very expensive. It's, at this point, back where porn was about 10 years ago, where it's dominated by production houses. But in the future, one of the things that my company is rolling out is a marketplace. It's Cam4 VR marketplace, and it's going to be coming out in the next couple of months. And what it does is we allow the performers to use the cameras that they already have that we've provided to them, the stitching software that we've created, and the platform to record their own VR adult content and sell it. So they don't have to make a big investment in hardware, software, or technique. And it democratizes adult film and virtual reality in a way that we've seen in traditional 2D adult film, and that I think is going to revolutionize VR and put it in the hands of the actual workers and the laborers who drive the business. And as a performer and as an advocate for performers, I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited about the direction that VR porn can take when it's in the hands of the people who directly connect with the viewership and the consumer base, and who can set their own boundaries and create content based on their understanding and expectations of the market from being the people who are actually facing it. So virtual reality in pornography offers a greater sense of humanity, a greater opportunity for sex workers, which, I mean, porn performers are marginalized people, and it gives opportunity to these people that are in an industry that is otherwise dwindling and losing opportunity for those people as we move forward. So virtual reality could really be a saving grace for pornography, and it's been a really cool ride. I think I'm out of time.